there, yeah. Okay. there?
Yeah, I'm gonna. So you might as well move in, like, yeah.
Are you expert on these things? I don't know what I did.
Yeah, you're on.
See if I'm doing this right.
You're on. Yep. You're live.
I shouldn't have to do anything, right? Or up here, do I have to?
Yep. If you want to mute it.
Then I want to unmute
Yeah,
it.
I just.
There.
You are live.
Okay.
You are live.
Thank you.
Let's unmute. Return again, return again, return to the land of your soul. Return again, return again, return to the land of your soul. Return to what you are, return to who you are, return to where you are, born and reborn again, return again, return again, return to the land of your soul. Return again, return again, return to the land of your soul. Return to what you are, return to who you are, return to where you are, born and reborn again, return again, return again, return to the land of your soul. Welcome to the Day of Atonement. I'm Rabbi Hannah Spiro, and I'm so honored to be up here on the bima with Michael Allen, who predates me on this bima by many years, Dan Gordon, Joe Hurwitz, and the newly ordained Rabbi Jenna Shaw. We are so grateful to Reformation, Lutheran Church of the Reformation, for welcoming us back for another Yom Kippur. And we're joined here by many of you physically and also many virtually, and Rabbi Jenna and I can see you if you comment on the live stream. It's like you're chatting us during services, which is the 2020s. So let's do it. And you can also access the digital Machzor via a link in the live stream comments/chat. I want to note some security points that I've been advised. There's a comprehensive safety plan that we're following, including volunteer greeters and ushers, and a collaboration with law enforcement. And we're located here at 212 East Capitol Street Northeast. So you'll be using only the main sanctuary door to enter and exit throughout the holidays. And this same door will be used to enter and exit for the children's program tomorrow as well. So please help with that plan. And then in the event of emergency, there are multiple exits here and here. And our ushers will direct you. Please note that in the unlikely event of an evacuation, our meeting point is at 4th and East Capitol in front of Grubb's Pharmacy and the grocery store. And the staff of the children's program have been told to take the children directly to our meeting point if an evacuation is necessary. And then, of course, as you leave tonight, please take a moment to thank our volunteers and law enforcement for helping to keep us safe. But for now, we're here in this Day of Atonement, or as our Torah calls it, Shabbat Shabbatonim, the ultimate Shabbat. The idea is that if Shabbat is about peace and wholeness, how much more so is tonight and this day that begins tonight. The whole premise is that tshuva, doing better, healing, and repair, is possible. So welcome back to the kind of peace that comes from believing that tshuva and a fresh start is within reach. Welcome to Yom Kippur. I want to say that many of us are planning to fast during this time, and many are not. And our tradition teaches us that each person knows their body best, and that when fasting is dangerous, it's not a mitzvah. So as we move through Yom Kippur, let's always keep safety and health in mind. One more note before we really get started, which we'll be doing on page 128 if you want to start flipping in your machzor to page 128. Coming together for Yom Kippur is such a powerful, critical part of our year. And people move mountains at work to make space for this time. People rouse themselves from depression and pain to be here physically or virtually. And some people come out on their birthdays and anniversaries. And I have been told that we actually have a couple kids in this room tonight who are here on their birthdays, which is a pretty special thing. So happy birthday, Hannah Moreno, and a happy birthday to Lulu Kluger, and anyone else whose birthdays I missed, as well as my parents' 35th wedding anniversary. Happy anniversary, Mom and Dad. It's just a beautiful thing to reflect on, that kind of commitment, to be here doing this powerful, powerful work on a birthday, on an anniversary. It speaks to the meaning of this, I think, for all of us. With that said, we're ready. I'd like to invite up the Hiller family to lead us on page 128 in our candle lighting. The Hiller family or their representatives.
Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu l'chad l'kner shel yom tov.
Amen. And let's read together as they light the Yizkor candle. We light this candle in the memory of all of our loved ones. We light it also in the memory of those who perished in the Holocaust, and for the innocent victims of terror in our own troubled times. By lighting this candle, we remember those we loved as well as those who have no one to remember them. May their memories be a blessing. Yasher Koach. Thank you. I'd like to invite Elizabeth Dranitsky to offer words from Ecclesiastes Rabbah, an early medieval midrashic text on page 124.
We enter the world in the same way we depart. We enter with a cry and go with a cry. We enter with weeping and go with weeping. We enter with love and go with love. We enter with a sigh and go with a sigh. We enter without knowing and go without knowing. It has been taught in the name of Rabbi Meyer, when we enter the world, our hands are clenched, as if to say, the whole world is mine, I shall inherit it. But when we take leave of it, our hands are spread open, as if to say, I have taken nothing from the world.
Yasher Koach. שלא ייגמר לעולם, אחורי הים, ישבו של המים, ורק השמיים, בהילת האדם, אחורי הים, בישול של המים, ורק השמיים, תפילת האדם. My God, I pray that these things never end. The sand and the sea, the rush of the water, the rush of the waters, the crash of the heavens, the prayer of the heart. I'd like to invite up Jane Lang to lead us in a responsive reading, the bottom of page 129.
We come together tonight to probe our weakness and our strength, and to fill the gap between what we profess and what we practice. We come to quiet the turbulence of the heart, restrain its impulsiveness, and check the eagerness of our every muscle to outsmart and outdistance our neighbors. We come for self-renewal and regeneration. We come to be strengthened in our determination to be free, never to compromise with idolatry or bow to dictatorship, cringe before autocracy, or succumb to force. We come to orient ourselves beyond the comprehension of our compounded dust. Make consistent our impulse to do good, for one good deed leads to another, and one transgression to another. We must begin with ourselves, but not end with ourselves. Turning to Teshuvah means when you have done wrong, then counteract it by doing right. There are 3 prerequisites for turning: eyes that see, ears that listen, and an understanding heart. If you have all 3, you are ready to turn and be healed.
In a moment, we'll begin our 3 renditions of the prayer whose name we use to call this entire service, Kol Nidre. Within it, we'll join our ancestors in expressing our grave doubt that we'll be able to do and fulfill it all in the coming year. It's not so much our letting ourselves off the hook as it is a plea for mercy, for understanding. And no matter how confident we're feeling, and no matter how depleted we're feeling, we all do this together. In preparation, we'll hear Michael chant ancient words emphasizing that this is real for each one of us. No matter how much we've transgressed, we are a part of this. No matter how well we think we've done, we need it too. No one of us has been perfect or will be, and each one of us has a piece in this tradition.
Bishiva Shemala Uvishiva Shemata Al Dat HaMakom Al Dat HaKahal Anu Matirin Lahipalel
I'd like to welcome up Dean and Allison May Rosen to hold our Torah scrolls for the first chanting of Kol Nidre. And as the ark is opened, please rise in body or in spirit.
Kol Nidre v'yasarei v'charamei v'konamei v'chinuyei v'chinusei u'shevut adindarna uriyishtivana uriyacharimna v'diasarna al nafshata ana miyom kippurim zeh ad yom kippurim haba aleinu le'tova kulhon icharat navehon kulhon yehon sharan shevitin v'telim umevutalim lashiririn v'la kayamin nidrana la nidre v'yasarana la esarei ushvuatana la shavuot.
I'd like to call up Joel and Alan Sarfati to hold the Torahs for our second rendition as we turn to page 132.
Top of page 132. All vows, oaths, and promises of any kind that we make to God between this Yom Kippur and next, we hereby publicly retract in the event that we should be unable to fulfill them, and hereby declare our intention to be absolved of them. Forgive the wrongdoings of this people and all who dwell in their midst, according to the greatness of your covenantal love, for in all of us is unwitting transgression. We ask forgiveness from you, our God, only for that which we pledge to you but cannot fulfill. We do not ask you to forgive our transgressions against our fellow humans, as we must ask forgiveness directly from those whom we have wronged. In this way, do we accept responsibility for our shortcomings?
We long to clear our conscience. We acknowledge we have not always been true to our inner calling. We recognize we have violated our highest vision of ourselves. You made us in your image, and we have fallen short. Release us from all that binds us to our imperfections.
Kol Nidre v'yasarei v'charamei v'konamei v'chinuyei v'kinusei u'shavuos. Darna Urayishtavana Uracharimna V'diasarna Hashanah. Miyom Kippurim zeh ad Yom Kippurim haba aleinu. Letova kol hon icharat navehon kol hon yehon sharon Shavitin, Batelin, Uvamutalin, Lo Sharirin, Velo Kayamin, Nidrana La Nidre, Vesarana La Esare, Ushavu Asana La Shavuot.
Shakuach. For the final repetition of Kol Nidre, I'd like to invite up Bill Buckman and Alina Bakyu to hold our Torahs. And David Zielinski, once again, will be offering the melody on the cello.
Yom Kippur is an incredibly visceral holiday. It's that moment where we hear these words that somehow feel like they elevate us. We hear these melodies that pull us somehow beyond the world as we understand it. And at the same time, it's incredibly physical. It's the day where we're instructed to rehearse our death. We wear white, some of us might be fasting from food, others from other things. We also spend a lot of the day standing as we're able. And the Baruch Hu is the first moment of that vulnerability and the physicality of this day. We're instructed to bend our knees with the root barach. And as we do so, we're reminded of the ways that our bodies change too. The ways in which the shifts in our bodies and the ways that we feel ourselves can also be a way to lean into our own mortality and sense of change. The Baruch Hu on page 134. Baruch Adonai HaMevorach Le'olam Va'ed.
Baruch Adonai HaMevorach Le'olam Va'ed. Please be seated.
Yom
ואהבתך אל תסיר ממנו לעולמים. ברוך אתה אדוני, אוהב עמו ישראל.
Amen.
I'd like to invite up Michelle and Mark Adelson to lead us in a poem by Alexander Massey as we prepare for the Shema, the first Shema of Yom Kippur, the day when we utter both lines fully aloud.
Here, let the whisper of the infinite enter the secret chamber of your heart. Yearning is a gift. It pierces. The shell you build around you, who you truly are, the source of kindness and the source of justice are in truth one source, the only one, the source of love.
Wrestle with the infinite, limbs entwined, skin on skin, breath on breath. You and the great other can meet yourselves, touch, dissolve, become one. There is no other, no otherness. All that has been, all that is, and all that shall be. All comes from one, and all is one. We all flower from the one root. We are kin.
Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad, Baruch Shem, Kevod Malchuto, Leolam Va'ed. Ve'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha b'chol levacha v'chol nafshecha u'v'chol me'odecha v'hayu hadvarim ha'ele asher anochi mitzavecha hayom al levavecha v'shintam levanecha v'dibarta b'am v'shivtecha v'beitecha u'v'lechtecha b'derech u'shokbecha u'fnumecha u'kshartam leot al yedecha v'hayu letotafot bein einecha u'chshavtam al mezuzot beitecha u'v'yisharecha. We continue silently through page 138. Adonai Elohechem Emet. We're moving to our song of the sea, our song of grateful, wondrous perspective through transition, through trauma, through survival. We remember what we've been through last year. We acknowledge the reality of pain that we've felt, and alongside it, we begin to locate what our ancestors somehow found, a sense of awe, of hope, and of movement. Page 139. Mi chamocha ba'elim Adonai, mi kamocha nedar b'kodesh, noah tehilot osef eleh, malchutecha ra'u banecha, boker yam lifnei Moshe, Zeli anu ve'amru Adonai yimloch le'olam va'ed v'nemar kifad Adonai et Yaakov lo miyad chazak mimenu Baruch ata Adonai Ga'al Yisrael.
Amen.
Page 140. Even as we sing these words of gratitude and of courage, we are also courageously open about our concerns and our fears. We move to Hashkivenu, and we ask for safety and for peace. Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu leshalom V'hamidenu Malkeinu L'chaim. Spread the shelter of your peace over us. Guide us in wisdom, compassion, and trust. Hashivenu Adonai, Eloheinu leshalom. V'hamidenu Malkeinu L'chaim. Save us for the sake of your name. Shield us from hatred, sorrow, and pain. Hashivenu Adonai, Eloheinu l'shalom. Hamidenu Malkeinu Please rise in body or in spirit on page 141 of the Chatzi Kaddish. יתגדל ויתקדש שמי רבה. מעמד יברח חילותי וימליך מלכותי וחייכונו ויומכון ובחיי דחו בית ישראל בגלה ובזמן קריב ואמרו אמן. יהא שמי רבה מברך לעולם ולעולמי עלמיה יתברך. יתברך וישתבח ויתפאר ויתרומם ויתנשא ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתהלל שמי לקודשה בריחו לעילא ולעילא מקור ברכתה ושירתה תושבחתה ונחמתה באמירה בעלמה ואמרו אמן.
When I first started therapy, I would start our sessions saying, there's so much that I want to talk about, but I don't know where to start. And my therapist would look at me lovingly, waiting for me to start. And at first, we sat in silence, staring at each other, unsure of where to start. And then, slowly but surely, I started talking. And then she said, see, you got to everything. It was all connected. That's the Amidah. Sometimes it's so hard to figure out where to start. We're in this really intense day. It feels like God, ourselves, our community has so much to talk about, and we're not sure where to start. So we start with the words, asking God to help us open our lips. Sometimes we need a little help figuring out where to start. And other times we might need to look at ourselves back with a patient smile, saying, you'll get there. And maybe it is all connected. We'll start the Amidah on page 142. And after we sing those words, we'll pray silently. The traditional words can be found on page 142 onwards, and then there's some silent reflection on page here I have 20 to 27, which is not correct.
It's after the traditional words. You'll find it. Just keep going.
Or follow the words of your heart on page 142.
Starting on page 148, that's where it gets different. Yeah.
Amazing.
Na 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 Adonai. Na 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 Sfatai Tiftach. Na 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 Ufi Agi. Ufi Agi Tehilatecha. Na 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 Adonai. Na 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 Sfatai Tiftach. Na 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 Ufi Agi. Ufi Agi Tehilatecha. Continue on at your own pace. Be seated when you're ready. Sing together on page 147. Shalom Rav. Shalom Rav Yisrael Amcha Nasim Leolam. Shalom Rav Yisrael Amcha Nasim Leolam. Ki ata hu melech adon 151. Earlier this evening, we sang Hashivenu, return us to you, return us to our best selves, and we will return. We will find our way back. We revisit these words of tshuva and hope as part of Shema Kolenu, a prayer that our prayers might be heard, that this yearning for tshuva and positive change be believed in by ourselves, by the universe, by God, maybe. As we pray to be heard by the divine, I imagine us begging ourselves, willing ourselves to believe in a better future, in our capacity for growth and health and righteousness. We chant together. Shema kolenu, Adonai Eloheinu, chus v'rachem aleinu, v'kabel berachamim uvratzon et tefilatenu, hashivenu, Adonai elecha v'nashuva, chadesh yamenu kekedem, al tashlichenu milfanecha, v'ruach kodshecha, al tikach mimenu, al tashlichenu le'et zikna, kichlot kochenu, al ta'azvenu, אל תעזבנו, אדוני אלוהינו, אל תרחק ממנו, עשה עמנו אות לטובה, ויראו שונאינו, ויבשו כי אתה אדוני, עזרתנו וניחמתנו, כי לך אדוני הורכלנו, אתה תענה, אדוני אלוהינו. אלוהינו ואלוהי אבותינו ואימותינו, סלח לנו, מחול לנו, כפר לנו. Page 152. כי אנו עמך, ואתה אלוהינו, אנו בניך, ואתה אבינו, אנו עבדיך, ואתה אדוננו, אנו גאלך, ואתה חלקנו, אנו נחלתך, ואתה גורלנו, אנו שונאך, ואתה רואינו, אנו חלמך, ואתה נותרנו, אנו פעולתך, ואתה יוצרנו, אנו רעייתך, ואתה דודנו, אנו סגולתך, ואתה קרובנו, אנו עמך, ואתה מלכנו, אנו מאמירך, ואתה מאמירנו.
This year, in the days between Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, I was in New York with many other Hill Havurah members protesting. And as we protested, a group of rabbis came together outside the United Nations and davened and prayed shacharit with some liturgy from High Holidays. One particular piece of liturgy that we sung together was Ashamnu. We stood out and said these words as a rallying cry, not as blanket ritual, but as a true and genuine call to action. What are the things that you really need to take action on this year? What are the ways that you've shown up short in your relationships and in the way that you've shown up to the world? We use these words and we call ourselves to action, rising as we're able on the top of page 153.
Ashamnu, Bagadnu, Gazalnu, Dibarnu Dofi. Hebinu, Vehilshanu, Zadnu, Chamasnu, Tafanu Shekel. Yatsura, Gizabnu, Latnu, Maradnu, Niatnu, Sararnu, Avinu, Pashanu, Sararnu, Kishinu Oref. Rashanu, Shichatnu, Tiavnu, Tainu, Titanu. Page 154. Ve'agulam elo asalichot Salach lanu mechalanu Salach lanu mechalanu Kapelanu.
For all these marks we have missed, forgiving God, forgive us,
Pardon us, grant us atonement.
You know the mysteries of the universe and the secrets of every living thing. You probe our innermost depths. You examine our feelings, our thoughts. Nothing is hidden from you. Nothing escapes you. Together.
May it be your will to forgive us all our sins, to pardon all our iniquities, to grant us atonement for all our transgressions.
Here it is customary to tap one's chest with one's fist with each phrase, as transgressions are presumed to emanate from the heart. For the wrongs we have done before you under duress or by choice.
We have wronged before you by misusing our minds.
For the wrongs we have done before you willingly or unwillingly.
We have wronged before you by hardening our hearts.
For the wrongs we have done before you by confusing love with lust.
We have wronged before you openly and in private.
For the wrongs we have done before you by inflicting lasting hurts.
We have wronged before you by misusing our words.
For the wrongs we have done before you by deceiving another person.
We have wronged before you with malicious intent.
For the wrongs we have done before you by disrespecting our parents and teachers.
We have wronged before you both intentionally and by mistake.
For the wrongs we have done before you by acts of desecrating creation.
We have wronged before you with our carelessness.
For the wrongs we have done before you by not resisting the impulse to evil.
We have wronged before you when we fail to do the right thing. Ve'agulam elo asalichot Mechach lanu mechalanu Salach lanu mechalanu Kapelanu.
For the wrongs we have done before you by using people as stepping stones.
We have wronged before you for pretending to emotions we do not feel.
For the wrongs we have done by using the sins of others to excuse our own.
We have wronged by denying our responsibility for our own misfortune.
For the wrongs we have done before you by condemning in our children and our parents the faults we tolerate in others.
Before you by not facing our own deficiencies.
For the wrongs we have done by passing judgment without knowing all the facts.
We have wronged before you by talebearing.
For all the wrongs we have done before you by dishonesty in our accumulations.
Wronged by remembering the cost of things but not their value.
for the wrongs we have done by overindulging our children's wants while neglecting their needs.
We have wronged before you by setting ourselves as poor examples.
For the wrongs we have done before you by not crying out for peace.
We have wronged before you by closing our hearts and hesitating.
For the wrongs we have done before you by not stopping evil in its tracks.
We have wronged before you by closing our hearts and hesitating.
For the wrongs we have done before you by our silence and indifference.
We have wronged before you by not speaking out to change that which is wrong. Ve'agulam elo aslichot, slach lanu mechalanu, slach lanu mechalanu, kaver lanu. I'd like to invite Howard Crystal and Ann Mesnikoff to lead us in a prayer by Marion Wright Edelman.
O God, forgive our rich nation where small babies die of cold quite legally.
O God, forgive our rich nation where small children suffer from hunger quite legally.
O God, forgive our rich nation where toddlers and school children die from guns sold quite legally.
O God, forgive our rich nation that lets children be the poorest group of citizens quite legally.
O God, forgive our rich nation that lets the rich continue to get more at the expense of the poor quite legally.
O God, forgive our rich nation which thinks security rests in missiles rather than in mothers, and in bombs rather than in babies.
O God, forgive our rich nation for not giving you sufficient thanks, but giving to others their daily bread.
O God, help us never to confuse what is quite legal with what is just and right in your sight.
Shakoach, you may be seated.
We have confronted the wrongs we have committed, and now we acknowledge the acts that inspired us to greater kindness. By recalling them, may we be moved to perform them, repeat them, to build on them, and to have them guide us toward a better existence. Keep us far from petty self-regard, from anger, from impatience, despair, gossip, and all bad traits. Grant us the gift of seeing other people's merits and not their faults. Together, we thank you, our God, for the many opportunities we have for doing good, standing up for justice when we see another mistreated, remembering the good in others even when we are upset with them, expressing gratitude to those who help us, giving freely to tzedakah, to charity, financial acts of justice, apologizing to those we needlessly hurt, returning a found object to its owner, bringing comfort to the sick, helping others to find work, shelter, and their own strength, giving the gift of laughter, embracing change when it is good, resisting change when it is bad.
In just a minute, we're going to turn to the bottom of page 157 for Pete Hooley. Pete Hooley comes from the Psalm 118, which is a beautiful psalm full of inspiration, and there's so much to draw from. I want to bring our attention to 3 lines later, which the line is, Evan masu habonim haita lerosh pina. The stone the builders rejected has become the cornerstone. To work for justice, to work for peace, internally and externally in the world, who are the stones that the builders have rejected? What are the parts of ourselves, the stones within ourselves that we've rejected? And what would it take to make those stones be the cornerstones? Because that's when the gates of justice will open. P2 Lee on the bottom of page 157. We turn to the top of page 158, where we're about to begin a series of piyutim. These are Jewish poetry, some sections of Jewish poetry that help use metaphor to put into words what's hard to articulate. We're going to turn to page 158 on the top of the page.
I'd like to welcome Fran Buntman up to the bima to lead us in a prayer by Rabbi Yitzchak Luria.
Ribono Shem Olam, I hereby forgive whomever has hurt me and whomever has done me any wrong, whether it was deliberately or by accident, whether it was done by word or by deed, in this incarnation or in previous ones. May no one be punished on my account. May it be your will, Adonai, my God, God of my parents, that I sin no more, that I do not revert to my old ways, that I do not anger you any more by my actions, that I do not do that which is evil in your sight. Wipe away the sins that I have committed with your great compassion, but not through sickness or suffering. May these words of my mouth and the prayers that are in my heart be acceptable before you, Adonai, my rock and my redeemer.
Amen. Yasher koach. Page 159 in the middle of the page.
Hanshamalach, Hanshamalach, Oy Hanshamalach ve'haguf balach, Usa malamalach. Oy Hanshamalach ve'haguf balach, Usa malamalach. Hanshamalach, Hanshamalach, Oy Hanshamalach v'haguf balach, Usa malach. Oy Hanshamalach v'haguf balach, Usa malach.
I'd like to invite the Kaufman-Levine family up to lead us in another piyut, beginning at the bottom of page 159, as clay in the hands of the potter. We'll be going through the first 4 verses of this piyut in Hebrew, alternating with English. We have an honorary member of the family. Beautiful. Hi, Joanna. Beautiful. The combined Cohen, Levine, Kaufman family.
As clay in the hands of the potter, to be thickened or thinned, we are in your hands. Preserve us with your love. Remember your covenant, not our imperfection. As stone in the hand of the mason, to be broken or preserved, we are in your hands. Grant us strength. Remember your covenant, not our defects. As iron in the hand of the blacksmith, to be thrust into fire or withdrawn, we are in your hands. Help us to forge our faith. Remember your covenant, not our weakness. As a rudder in the hand of the helmsman, to be guided or abandoned, we are in your hands. Prevent us from drifting. Remember your covenant, not our misdirection.
Yasher koach.
Yasher koach. Thank you. I'm going to call up the Ajmera Hollander family to come open the ark for Avinu Malkeinu on the top of page 161. Avinu Malkeinu is the ultimate prayer of spontaneity. It's also a plea and a moment of desperation. The Talmud tells a story of where this prayer came from. The people were in the midst of a drought, and Rabbi Eliezer stood in front of his community to lead the community in the Amidah. He looked around, he saw the desperation around him, and instead of saying the traditional words, he stood up and he said, Avinu Malkeinu, and these are the words that came out. So wherever you are, whatever it is that you're pleading for and so desperately want in this moment, this is your place to say those words. Avinu Malkeinu, we rise as we're able, on the top of page 161.
There's a knob down there.
Avinu Malkeinu, Chomeinu Baneinu. Avinu Malkeinu, Chomeinu Baneinu, Ki ein banu maasim. Aseh imanu, Tzedaka v'chesed. Aseh imanu tzedaka v'chesed ve'hoshienu. Avinu Malkeinu, Choneinu baneinu. Avinu Malkeinu, Choneinu baneinu, Ki ein banu maasim.
Avinu Malkeinu, Chatanu v'fanecha. Avinu Malkeinu, ein lanu melech ela ata. Avinu Malkeinu, aseh imanu l'ma'an shemecha. Avinu Malkeinu, chadesh aleinu shana tova. Avinu Malkeinu, hafer atzat oivenu. Avinu Malkeinu, silach u'mechal l'chol avonoteinu. Avinu Malkeinu, chachasirenu b'tshuva shlema lefanecha. Avinu Malkeinu, shalach refuah shlema lecholim. Avinu Malkeinu, kodvenu b'sefer l'chaim tovim. Avinu Malkeinu, kodvenu b'sefer gula b'shua. Avinu Malkeinu, kodvenu b'sefer parnasa v'chalkala. Avinu Malkeinu, kodvenu b'sefer zechuyot. Avinu Malkeinu, kodvenu b'sefer slicha u'mechila. Avinu Malkeinu, chatzma lana Yeshua bekarov. Avinu Malkeinu, zachor ki afar anachnu. Avinu Malkeinu, chamol aleinu v'al ol aleinu v'tapenu. Avinu Malkeinu, aseh leman harukim al shem kodshecha. Avinu Malkeinu, aseh leman shemecha, hagadol, hagadol, hagibor v'hanora, shenikra aleinu. Avinu Malkeinu, Choneinu baneinu. Avinu Malkeinu, Choneinu baneinu, Ki ein banu maasim. Aseh imanu, tzedaka v'chesed. Aseh imanu, tzedaka v'chesed ve'hoshienu. Avinu Malkeinu, Choneinu baneinu. Avinu Malkeinu, Choneinu baneinu, Ki ein banu maasim.
You may be seated. יישר כוח. Imagine yourself living long in the past, a deeply well-respected teacher in Jerusalem. Under siege by the Roman army, two groups are at odds within your Jewish community. Some, zealots, want to rebel against the Romans, refusing to accede to them at any cost. Others have been open to a bit more assimilation or compromise. These two groups were not friends, to the point that the zealots who stood guard around your city to keep the Romans out were also trying to keep their fellow Jews in. Nobody can leave. You, your colleagues, and your friends have been trying to maintain as much normalcy as possible. You've been trying to keep studying and to practice Judaism, but it's becoming clear that the end is near. Your institutions are about to be destroyed. Many will die. All this seems inevitable. Then you get a crazy idea, but it just might work, and you've earned the respect that'll make people go along with it. You're going to pretend to be very sick. People are going to start talking about how they're worried about you. Your closest friends will be tasked with finding something that smells terrible and putting it near your bed so that when visitors come, they'll think you're dead and decomposing. So you're placed in a coffin. Your friends will carry that coffin to the walls of the city where zealot guards don't want anyone to leave. Before they pierce you with their sword to make sure you're really dead, one of your students will tell them, "This is a bad look. You don't want the Romans to think we dishonor our greatest teachers." And the plan works to perfection. And the next thing you know, you are out of the city and the coffin. You now have a unique opportunity. You find yourself face to face with Vespasian, who would eventually become the emperor of Rome. This is your moment, a rare opportunity to speak truth to power. Who can save your people but you? Vespasian addresses you with a metaphor. Look, if there is a barrel of honey and a snake is wrapped around it, wouldn't they break the barrel in order to kill the snake? His point is that there may be innocent people in your city of Jerusalem, but these zealots barricading the place, in his mind, are like snakes. So the Romans have to smash the barrel. Vespasian is telling you why he is about to massacre your people. This is your one chance to change his mind and save Jerusalem. This is your moment. What do you say? Nothing. You're silent. Later, the Talmud speculates about what you could have said, like take tongs, remove and kill the snake, but save the honey barrel, the people. In fact, a Talmudic statement is made that your silence at such a pivotal moment epitomizes a wise person acting like a fool. But wait, you get a second chance. Right after this exchange, or lack thereof, and right in front of you, Vespasian encounters a personal problem, one he's quite stressed about, and this gives you an opportunity to give him some advice. He can see now how wise you are. He's coming to trust you too, even to feel gratitude. You've got another chance. Vespasian says, look, I'm about to go off to Rome. Someone else is going to come to take over for me with this siege, so before I leave, I'd love to ask, what can I do for you? This provides a second opening for you. What are you going to ask for? Do you ask for an end to the siege? You don't. Do you ask him to spare the lives of all the innocent people? You don't. You ask for three things. First, there is an outpost outside the city where people engage in Jewish learning. It's called Yavna. Sound familiar? You tell him, let me be in charge of that and don't destroy it. Also, I ask for you to spare the family of Rab Gamliel and to send doctors to heal Rabbi Tzadok. These are your only requests. And as you imagine, a Monday morning quarterback in the Talmud refers to this as yet another illustration of a wise person behaving foolishly. You're criticized for not saying, leave all the Jews alone. You're taken to task for setting such meager goals. Here, at least, the Talmud provides a reason for what you said and didn't say. It suggests that you determined that had you asked for more, Vespasian would have done nothing for you. You tried to be realistic, not utopian. But still, you had to know how upset your community would have been if they could have seen what you did. This is the story of Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai. He had this massive opportunity to try to save Jerusalem, the temple, and his Jewish community. And many feel like he made a big mistake, not even asking for Vespasian to stop the siege and save his people. When he was silent, was he panicking and giving up? Or was he pausing, assessing the situation, and realizing that nothing he said was going to preserve Jerusalem as he knew it? Even if the siege did stop, and it probably wouldn't, the zealots were in charge. What kind of Jewish community were they going to lead? What violence and extremism were they going to perpetuate? So you gamed it out. You didn't make a decision based on how you wished things were, on your highest ideals. You made a decision based on the actual situation at hand. After all, like Vespasian, reality doesn't care what you want. Reality has its own agenda. So people are going to die, and the temple is going to be destroyed. Things will never be the same. But you have confidence that if you concern yourself with this small garden of learning, you can keep some Judaism alive. You will still have Yavna, the outpost of Jewish learning that you manage to preserve. You take charge, you teach, and even more than that, you lead. You lead the transition from the Judaism of animal sacrifices that could no longer exist now that the whole institution of Jerusalem was demolished. And you figure out how to replace animal sacrifice with prayer. This Judaism as we know it today, so much of this was thanks to you. Let's step back for a minute. All you have to do is imagine what it would have been like to have your entire family destroyed because of Ben Zakkai's apparent cowardice, his apparent lack of inspiration to strive for the moon. This man would have looked like a horrible example, refusing to dream big and settling for virtually nothing, humanity as its most unheroic. In fact, I actually started thinking about Ben Zakkai's story in relation to this Day of Atonement because I was thinking of it as a story of failure and tshuva, of coming back to one's best self. I thought, look, Ben Zakkai failed to save his people, but he didn't let that break him, end his confidence, or end his career. So too, we can fail. We can drop the ball on meeting our goals and acting in accordance with our values, and we can then move on and do better next time. But the more I thought about it, I don't think Ben Zakkai actually failed. I think he looked around, came to terms with the reality of the world he was living in, and worked with what he had. The results looked really different from what he would have initially hoped for, but he did the best one could do given his circumstances. In the shows and movies we watch and the books that we read, you are only one break away from writing a bestseller or creating a big tech startup. Influencers on social media are sharing these perfect portraits of parenting and these epic fitness journeys, and even our friends on social media are highlighting the very best of what they have to showcase. We're always watching people do these incredible things, but our ancestors, by and large, were primarily concerned with something much more basic. They did what they needed to do to provide for themselves and their families. We can all think of parents, grandparents, or great-grandparents of ours whose careers and hobbies were humble and who we remember as being incredibly smart, dedicated individuals. They did the best that one could do given their circumstances. On paper, their work was simple and wouldn't have translated well to Instagram. In reality, what they did was and continues to be deeply cherished, as is the legacy of Ben Zakkai. Judaism isn't just about ideals. It's also about being pragmatic. I spent this summer, of course, like so many of you, thinking about and worrying about Israel. If you don't know what happened, the long story made very short is that last fall, an exceptionally right-wing government was elected in Israel. And this summer, they did what they've been threatening to do for a while, which is severely limit the power of the Israeli Supreme Court, thereby largely dismantling Israel's system of checks and balances. An optimistic read, I think, would be that Israeli democracy is in jeopardy. A more pessimistic read would be that it's been thrown in the trash. Something that's been powerful to see has been the extraordinary number of Israelis from a diverse swath of the political spectrum speaking out to loudly protest the judicial coup, as many are calling it. One common theme I've been hearing recently, and honestly for a long time, is that it might be time to give up on Israel. These core Jewish values that we were raised with, justice, peace, truth, are in so many ways not being upheld by the Jewish state, and many American Jews are tempted to abandon ship. Let me be clear. I understand the impetus. I have felt firsthand the shocking, sinking feeling of learning as a young adult that the honorable spirit of the IDF, with its deep value set on all human life, is not upheld as religiously as I'd been taught. That so many of the traumas perpetrated on the Jewish people have now been perpetrated against Palestinians at the hands of our fellow Jews. It was a long time ago now that I learned these things, but I remember the feeling, and it was awful. And so many Jews, young Jews especially, come to realize the sickening information and throw up their hands. They bemoan how Israel was supposed to be good with a capital G, the realization of the Jewish dream. It is, in fact, in so many ways, the opposite of what we have been dreaming of. And so there's this pull to decry it, not just its current policies or the dark sides of its history, but it itself as a whole, as a goal. The goal of Israel, they say, is dead to me. To me, this would be like Ben Zakkai looking Vespasian in the face and saying, I'm sorry, but it's all or nothing for me. Save my people, stop this violence, end the siege. That's all I have to say to you. Vespasian would likely have laughed in his face. Jerusalem would still be lost. Yavna would also have been lost, as well as the new style of post-sacrificial Judaism that Ben Zakkai was able to help form. His ideals would have been preserved, but everything but the dream would be destroyed. So the question I have for us is this: what can we do with Israel, given what is? What can we actually do with the situation at hand? Loud and unapologetic criticism is almost indubitably part of the answer. Even IDF military officers are getting in on the protests right now. Anyway, as Americans, we know that political involvement is part of ethical, meaningful patriotism. And sometimes, often, political involvement means dissent. But dissent, protest, constructive criticism, all of that implies some sort of connection and some sort of hope for the future. Now is not the time to draw a line between American progressive Judaism and Israel. Now is the time to think pragmatically, to think like Ben Zakkai, and to figure out what American progressive Judaism can realistically do to make things better. We can continue to learn more about what's going on from a variety of Israeli and Palestinian voices. We can learn what organizations are doing the work for human rights, justice, democracy, and peace that gives us hope, and support them. Not only the great big ones, but the little ones too. The ones with small overheads, maybe small impact by number, but great impact per person. We do not need to spend our lives vacillating between idealism and cynicism. The lesson of Kol Nidre might be that the truth and our best shot at tshuva lies somewhere in the middle. After all, this night, the beginning of Yom Kippur, Kol Nidre, is named after the central liturgy of the service, the prayer we repeated 3 times this evening, publicly renouncing and nullifying any vows we might make between now and next Yom Kippur. There's a dark history there from when Jews were regularly forcibly converted to Christianity. It's often said that this prayer developed so that we could vow allegiance to Christianity and then continue to pray with Jews. And anyone with a basic understanding of the way Yom Kippur works knows that first we have to fix our interpersonal wrongs and make good with one another before our prayers on Yom Kippur will have any effect at all, theological, psychological, or otherwise. So Kol Nidre doesn't let us off the hook for promises that we make to one another. But I also think there's a larger lesson here around the way we see the world. We spend the high holidays committing to doing better, to repairing the world and repairing ourselves. And we mean it. We have to mean it. At the same time, we have to know that perfection is something we will never attain, and our dreams are not all possible. What is attainable, what is doable, is what is practical, what is pragmatic, what might be seen as a compromise, as settling, as a supremely unheroic way to live, or by those of us who look up to Ben Zakkai, who are grateful for what he salvaged, could be seen as powerful, as productive, as real. We often imagine that practicing pragmatism is the opposite of heroism because we tend to celebrate ideals. But tonight we find heroism in the fight to practice pragmatism and take the blame for doing so rather than being ideologically pure and accomplishing nothing. Tonight we remember that utopianism is not necessarily the path of virtue. Idealism is not the goal. Tonight we find what is most holy within what is actually doable, within that which we can build on. We look at the dreams we've dreamed up for ourselves, as professionals, as lovers, as parents, as children, as creators, as physical bodies. We look at the dreams we've dreamed up for our community, as Jews, as Americans. We look at all of this and we consider, what within those dreams do we need to mourn and move on from? And what might we be able to attain once we've done that mourning and set fantasy aside? What can we actually heal? What can we actually save? What can we actually build? This Yom Kippur, we hold space for one another to begin the process of discernment. We support one another in the reflection, in the mourning, and in the confidence required. This Yom Kippur, we see beyond our perfectionism and self-judgment. This Yom Kippur, we consider what we can do, what we can become. Please rise as you are able, in body or in spirit, on page 164, as we prepare to move on with our service with the Kaddish Titkabal. יתגדל ויתקדש שמך רבה, ויעמד יברח חיותי וימליך מלכותי, בחייך וביומך ובחיי כל בית ישראל, בעגלה ובזמן קריב, ואמרו אמן. תהא שמך רבה מברך, לעלם ולעלמי עלמיה יתברך. יתברך וישתבח, ויתפאר ויתרומם וינשא, ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתהלל שמיר קודשה בריחו. לעילה ולעילה מכל ברכתה ושירתה, תושבחתה ונחמתה, דמירן בעלמה ואמרו אמן. תתקבל צאתנו ואתון תכל בית ישראל, קדם אבוהון דבשמיא ואמרו אמן. יהא שלום רבה מן שמיא וחיים עלינו ועל כל ישראל ואמרו אמן. עושה שלום במרומיו, הוא יעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל, ועל כל יושבי תבל ואמרו amen. I'd like to invite up Aaron Shapiro to open the ark as we continue with Aleinu on page 165.
Aleinu l'shabeach l'adon hakol, l'ateit gedula liotzer breshit, shelo asanu kegoye haratzot, v'lo samanu k'mishbechot ha'adama, shelo sam chelkenu kahem, v'gor aleinu kechol hamonam, anachnu korim, ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא שהוא נוטה שמיים ויוסד ארץ ומושב יקרו בשמיים ממעל ושכינתו זו בגבהי מרומים הוא אלוהינו Eino, Emet Malkeinu, Efes Ulato, Kakatu, V'torato, V'yadata hayom, V'hashevota, Elevavecha, Ki Adonai hu Elohim, Bashamayim imah, v'al haaretz, v'al haaretz, mitacha, ein od, ein od. V'na'emar, v'haya Adonai, lemelech al kol haaretz, bayom hahu, yeh Adonai echad, u'shemo, u'shemo, u'shemo echad.
You may be seated. I'd like to welcome up the Ratman Brightman family to lead us in a poem by Judy Chicago in the middle of page 167, articulating some of the vision of Elena.
And then all that has divided us will merge.
And then compassion will be wedded to power.
And then softness will come to a world that is harsh and unkind.
And then both men and women will be gentle.
And then both women and men will be strong.
And then no person will be subject to another's will.
And then all will be rich and free and varied.
And then the greed of some will give way to the needs of many.
And then all will share equally in the earth's abundance.
And then all will care for the sick and the weak and the old.
And then all will nourish the young.
And then all will cherish life's creatures.
And then all will live in harmony with each other and the earth. And then everywhere will be called Eden once again.
Yasher Koach. I'd like to welcome up the chair of Havurah's board of directors, Aaron Hiller, to give us some announcements.
Hello, everybody. We start back here tomorrow morning at 9:30. After, I think we end around 12:30. At 12:45, Rabbi Hannah leads us in Ish. 12:40. 15 minutes after the services end. We make no commitment as to when it will end. Rabbi Hannah will lead us in meditation. We'll come back for Yizkar and Ne'ilah at 6 and 6:30. Thank you to everybody on the Bima for a fabulous, fabulous service. Thank you, Rabbi Hannah, for that bit of Torah. Thank you, as always, to our executive director, Alan Schusterman, and his whole team. Thank you, of course, to our hosts here at the Lutheran Church of the Reformation. We have a full slate of high holiday activities coming up with Sukkot and Simchat Torah. Of course, I hope you're all coming back tomorrow. And as you come and go, please consider helping us fill their food bank. Details for that can be found on our website at hillhavurah.org, as can all the details for Sukkot and Simchat Torah and other events coming up for the month of October. I'll stop there. Gmar Chatima Tova. May you have a safe and easy fast and a happy new year.
Gmar Tov, Shkach, thank you. As we begin to turn our thoughts to our loved ones whose memories might be that much more on our minds this time of year, I'd like to welcome up Leslie Feeder to lead us in our poem on page 168.
At the rising of the sun and its setting, we remember them.
At the blowing of the wind and the chill of winter, we remember them.
At the opening of the buds and in the rebirth of spring, we remember them.
At the blueness of the skies and in the warmth of summer, we remember them.
At the rustling of the leaves and in the beauty of autumn, we remember them.
At the beginning of the year and when it ends, we remember them, for they are now a part of us as we remember them.
When we are weary and in need of strength, we remember them.
When we are lost and sick at heart, we remember them.
When we have joy we crave to share, we remember them.
When we have decisions that are difficult to make, we remember them.
When we have achievements that are based on theirs, we remember them.
As long as we live, they too will live, for they are now a part of us as we remember them.
Yasher Koach. If you are in mourning, having lost a loved one in the past year, I invite you to rise. And if you're observing a yard site, having lost a loved one this time of year in years past, I invite you to rise. If you'd like to share the name or the names of the folks you're thinking of, I invite you to do so.
Susan Rose.
It's your custom to rise for the Mourner's Kaddish. I invite you to do so in body or in spirit. The Mourner's Kaddish, page 169. Yit gadal v'yit kadash shemei rabba.
Amen.
Ve'amad yivrach yirtei v'yamlich malchutei. V'chayechon u'vyomechon u'chayei dechol beit Yisrael. V'agala u'bizman kariv imru. Amen.
Amen.
Yehei shemei rabba mevarach le'olam u'lamei almaya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitba'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh. V'yithadar v'yitale v'yitalal shemei dekudusha brichu. Le'ela u'le'ela mikol birchata v'shirata. Tushbachata v'nechamata. Damiran be'alma v'imru. Amen. Yehei shlama rabba min shemaya. V'chayim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru. Amen. Oseh shalom b'mormav. Hu ya'aseh shalom. Aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. Ve'al kol yoshvei tevel. V'imru. Amen. May the source of peace send peace to all who mourn. And may the memories of all those who remember be a source of comfort, of love, of growth, and of blessing. You may be seated. We conclude our service singing together words of peace, the last two lines of the Kaddish, the last two lines of the page. Oseh shalom b'roma, hu yaseh shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael, ve'al kol yoshvei tevel. Yaseh shalom, yaseh shalom, shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. Yaseh shalom, yaseh shalom, shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. Yaseh shalom, yaseh shalom, shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. Yaseh shalom, yaseh shalom, shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. So many thanks to all of you who participated in this service in all sorts of ways and made it possible. Have a safe fast if you're able to fast, and a meaningful evening. We'll join tomorrow at 9:30 a.m. Lala Tov.
I'd like to make one more acknowledgement, which is David Zielinski, who for many years now has been doing the cello for us on Kol Nidre. And David, it was another masterful performance, and we're so happy to have you and also Dorothy when she visits us in our services. May it continue for many years.
Asher Koach, thank you so much for being here. Hala Tov, Gamar Tov, and see you in the morning.